Welcome to Japanese Sleep Whispers, your sanctuary for peaceful nights and gentle dreams. Here, you will find calming bedtime stories inspired by the timeless beauty and traditions of Japan. Each story is read slowly in a soothing voice, accompanied by natural sounds such as flowing rivers and the tranquil rhythm of shishi-odoshi. Whether you seek relaxation, relief from stress, or help falling asleep, these tales invite you to drift away into a world of serenity. Imagine quiet temples, moonlit gardens, and the whispering bamboo forests as you listen. If you'd like these soothing stories to be part of your nightly routine, consider subscribing so they're always with you when you need them. Subscribe and let these stories be your nightly ritual of calm and rest. Thank you for being here. May you always find peace in every moment. The Pine's Quiet Breath. Prologue. Beneath the pines. In the quiet of an ancient forest, the air was cool and still. Tall pines rose high above, their trunks straight and strong, their branches whispering in a voice that only the patient could hear. The needles swayed gently, releasing a subtle fragrance, fresh, resinous, calming. A traveler stood at the edge of the forest path, pausing to listen. There was no rush, no sound of footsteps behind him, only the soft breath of the trees. The pines seemed alive, not merely as trees, but as companions who had witnessed centuries pass, who had guarded countless wanderers, and who now welcomed him into their embrace. He drew a slow breath, filling his lungs with the cool scent of pine, and stepped forward. Each motion felt lighter, as though the forest itself had lifted the weight from his shoulders. The journey was not toward a destination, but toward stillness, a stillness found only in the quiet breath of the pines. Chapter 1. The Old Garden Path. The traveler's steps carried him along a winding path, lined with stones smoothed by years of footsteps. Moss covered their edges, soft and green, holding the memory of morning rain. The air was filled with the mingled fragrance of pine and damp earth. Ahead, the path curved past a wooden gate, half hidden by vines and fallen leaves. The wood was weathered, yet strong, its surface etched with the patterns of age. He paused there, resting his hand upon the gate, feeling the cool texture beneath his palm. Beyond the gate stretched an old garden, quiet and untended. Fallen needles lay thick upon the ground, creating a soft carpet that muffled every step. A small stone basin rested near a pine, filled with clear water that reflected the sky. Ripples formed as a single pine needle drifted down, touching the surface with gentle grace. The traveler knelt by the basin, dipping his fingers into the cool water. The ripples spread outward, vanishing into stillness, just as his own thoughts began to quiet. The path, the gate, the garden, all of it seemed to breathe with the same rhythm as the pines. Each sound, each silence, each motion invited him deeper into calm. Chapter 2: A Whisper of Resin. The air grew richer as the traveler walked deeper into the grove. With every step, the scent of pine surrounded him, resinous, sharp, yet deeply soothing. The fragrance seemed to linger not only in the air but in the very fabric of silence that stretched between the trees. A breeze stirred, and the tall pines answered with a hushed murmur, their branches swaying gently as though they spoke in low voices. The sound was neither music nor language, but something more subtle, like the steady rhythm of breathing. The traveler slowed his steps, listening. He could almost sense the pulse of the forest, the hidden life within each trunk, each branch, each fallen needle. The resin-scented air felt like a balm, loosening the knots of thought within him, smoothing the edges of memory and care. He rested his hand on the bark of a nearby pine. It was rough beneath his fingers, yet warm, as though the tree carried the heat of countless days of sunlight. Closing his eyes, he inhaled once more, and for a moment, it felt as though the forest exhaled with him. There, in the stillness, he realized the pine's whisper was not only sound, but presence, something that entered the heart quietly, teaching him how to breathe again. Chapter 3: The Stone Steps. Beyond the grove, the path began to rise, leading to a set of stone steps carved into the hillside. They were old and uneven, their surfaces softened by moss and centuries of passing feet. The traveler placed his foot carefully on the first step. A faint echo rose from beneath, like the memory of countless pilgrims who had walked this way before him. The moss gave slightly under his weight, cool and damp, cushioning each step as though the earth itself wished to ease his climb. Above, the branches arched gently, creating a canopy of pine and maple. Light filtered through, dappled and shifting, illuminating the steps in patches of gold and shadow. The air was cooler here, touched by the faint trickle of water flowing nearby. The traveler ascended slowly, without haste, feeling the rhythm of each step. The rise and fall of his breath matched the murmur of the forest. When he reached a landing, he paused to look back. The grove below lay hushed, the trees standing like guardians, their whispers faint but constant. Turning forward again, he continued upward. The stone steps did not rush him. Instead, they invited patience, guiding him gently toward a place where silence would deepen, and where the breath of the pines would meet the stillness of the mountain. Chapter 4 Lanterns by the Stream. The stone steps descended into a gentle hollow where a stream wound its way through the forest. The water moved slowly, its surface clear and smooth, carrying with it the reflection of the sky and the red leaves drifting down from branches above. Along the banks, a row of stone lanterns stood silently, their forms softened by moss and time. Though unlit, they seemed to glow faintly in the fading light of afternoon, as though they remembered the many evenings when their flames once guided travelers. The traveler stopped beside one lantern, resting his hand upon its cool surface. A pine needle had fallen onto the stone top, and he brushed it away gently, as though honoring the memory of those who had walked here before. He knelt by the stream, dipping his fingers into the flowing water. It was cool, refreshing, carrying the scent of pine resin and wet stone. The sound of the water mingled with the distant sigh of the forest, forming a rhythm both grounding and serene. For a long moment, he sat there, listening. The lanterns did not speak, yet their presence was enough a reminder of light, of guidance, of quiet companionship. When he rose again, he felt as though the forest itself had bowed in acknowledgement of his stillness. Chapter 5 The Temple Gate. Beyond the stream, the path curved toward a wooden gate, tall and weathered, standing like a threshold between worlds. Its beams were darkened with age, yet strong, holding the weight of countless seasons of wind and rain. Beneath its roof, the scent of pine mingled with the faint aroma of incense that lingered in the air. The traveler paused before the gate, bowing his head slightly. Passing beneath, he felt the shift immediately. The air grew stiller, deeper, as though the space beyond was wrapped in quiet devotion. The temple grounds stretched out, framed by towering pines. Stone paths led toward wooden halls, their roofs curved gracefully, their edges lined with fallen leaves. Somewhere within, a bell waited, silent for now, yet promising a sound that would reach both earth and sky. The traveler walked slowly across the courtyard. Each step upon the stone echoed softly, then was absorbed into the greater hush. He felt as though he had entered not just a temple, but a sanctuary of time itself, where moments were elongated, and silence became a gentle prayer. Standing before the main hall, he inhaled deeply. The pine's quiet breath was here too, woven into wood, into incense, into the stillness that held the entire temple. It was not a silence of absence, but of presence deep, patient, eternal. Chapter 6 The Bell of Evening. The temple courtyard grew quiet as the light of day faded into dusk. Shadows stretched across the stone, and the air cooled, carrying with it the faint fragrance of pine needles and incense. At the far side of the grounds stood a great bronze bell, suspended within a wooden frame. Its surface was darkened by time, yet smooth where countless hands had touched it in reverence. The traveler approached slowly, feeling the hush of the space gather around him. When the bell was struck, its sound filled the evening air deep, resonant, and unhurried. The tone lingered, spreading outward like ripples upon still water, touching trees, lanterns, stones, and sky. The traveler closed his eyes as the sound reached him. It was not merely heard, it was felt within his chest, within his breath, within the stillness that settled over the forest. Each fading note seemed to draw away the weight of thought, leaving only clarity, only calm. As the final echoes faded, silence returned, yet it was no longer empty. It was filled with the memory of the bell, a presence that remained even after the sound was gone. The traveler bowed gently, as though in gratitude for a gift that words could not hold. Chapter 7: A Pine's Quiet Breath. Beyond the temple, the traveler found himself once more among the pines. Night had fallen, but the moonlight filtered through the branches, casting silver upon the forest floor. The pines stood tall, their trunks rising like pillars, their needles whispering in the wind. The traveler stopped and listened. Each sway, each murmur, seemed to breathe with a rhythm older than memory. He sat beneath one of the great trees, resting his back against its trunk. Closing his eyes, he breathed slowly, deeply. The air carried the cool scent of resin, sharp and clean, grounding him in the present moment. In that stillness, he felt the tree's quiet breath, steady, patient, eternal. It was not a sound alone, but a presence, a calm that reached into his very being. With each inhale, he felt the strength of the roots buried deep in the earth. With each exhale, he felt the freedom of the branches stretching toward the sky. Time seemed to fade. There was no beginning, no end, only the gentle rhythm of the pine, and the traveler's own heart aligning with it. When he opened his eyes again, the forest was unchanged, yet he himself was quieter, as though the tree had shared with him a fragment of its timeless calm. Chapter 8: Shadows on Tatami. The traveler was welcomed into a quiet hall within the temple. The wooden doors slid open with a soft sound, and inside, the world felt hushed, as though wrapped in the gentle arms of silence. Tatami mats stretched across the floor, their woven patterns faintly illuminated by the glow of a single candle. Shadows flickered along the wooden beams, moving gently with the flame. The air carried the faint warmth of incense, mingled with the ever-present scent of pine from the forest outside. The traveler sat upon the tatami, his back straight, his hands resting lightly upon his knees. The stillness of the room was not empty, it was alive. Each creak of the wood, each flicker of the flame, each breath drawn into the lungs became part of the temple's rhythm. He closed his eyes. The silence deepened, spreading like water across a calm pond. For a long moment, time itself seemed to pause, holding him in an embrace that was both grounding and infinite. When he opened his eyes, the candle burned steadily, its flame unwavering. It felt as though the quiet had seeped into him, becoming part of his very breath. Chapter 9: The Call of Crickets. Later, the traveler stepped outside into the night. The air was cool, carrying with it the resinous fragrance of the pines and the faint memory of incense from the temple hall. All around him, the sound of crickets filled the darkness. Their steady, rhythmic song rose and fell like the beating of a distant heart. It was simple, unadorned, yet it wove itself into the fabric of the night, making the silence fuller, deeper. The traveler walked slowly along a stone path. Lanterns glowed faintly, their light soft and golden, casting halos upon the ground. The shadows of pine branches stretched long across the stones, swaying gently in the night breeze. He stopped by a wooden bench beneath a tree and sat down, listening. The crickets sang without pause, their voices neither hurried nor demanding. They simply were, as constant as the stars beginning to appear in the sky above. The traveler's breathing slowed, matching the rhythm of their song. Each chirp became a marker of time, a guide toward stillness. A reminder that even the smallest sounds can hold the world steady. As he sat in the night, surrounded by the pines and the voices of crickets, he felt as though the forest itself had become a lullaby, leading him gently towards sleep. Chapter 10: The Silent Courtyard. The traveler entered a small courtyard within the temple grounds. The space was enclosed by low wooden walls and shaped stones, but it felt open, expansive like a pocket of stillness preserved within the night. The gravel was carefully raked into delicate patterns that glimmered faintly under the light of lanterns. Pines stood at the edges, their shadows stretching long across the raked sand. A single stone basin caught moonlight upon its surface, reflecting silver ripples where water dripped steadily from a bamboo pipe. The traveler sat quietly at the edge of the courtyard. The air was cool against his skin, filled with the faint scent of pine needles and the distant call of crickets. The sound of dripping water marked time in soft intervals, each drop resonating like a note within the silence. As he gazed across the courtyard, he felt the patterns in the sand draw him inward. Their lines curved gently, suggesting rivers, mountains, and the unseen flow of the wind. He breathed in slowly, realizing that even stillness has movement, gentle, patient, eternal. The courtyard became a mirror of his own mind, calm, spacious, waiting only for presence. Chapter 11 Strolling Under the Autumn Moon. Later that night, the traveler stepped beyond the temple walls and into the open path once more. Above, the autumn moon hung bright and full, casting silver light upon the forest. The pines shimmered softly in their glow, their needles catching the light like countless threads of glass. The path stretched forward, lined with stones and bordered by fallen leaves. Each step the traveler took echoed faintly, then dissolved into the quiet night. The air was cool and crisp, carrying with it the faint fragrance of earth and pine resin. He paused at a small clearing where the moonlight touched the ground unobstructed. The space was bathed in pale silver, and even the shadows seemed softened, made gentle by the moon's calm presence. The traveler looked upward, watching the sky. Stars twinkled faintly around the moon, distant yet steady. He felt himself part of that vastness, not separate, not small, but woven into the same fabric of silence and light. Breathing deeply, he let the quiet fill him. Each inhalation was the cool air of the night, each exhalation was a release into the endless calm. The moon did not demand, nor did it judge. It simply shone, steady and unwavering, a reminder that peace could be constant even amidst change. The traveler walked on, his steps light, his heart aligned with the silence of the autumn moon. Chapter 16 Morning Along the path. The traveler descended the moss-covered stone steps once more, this time in the freshness of morning. The air was cool but touched by the warmth of the rising sun. Pine needles glistened with dew, and the ground held the soft scent of damp earth. As he walked, the forest seemed newly awakened. Small birds flitted between branches, their wings flashing in the early light. The rustling of leaves sounded gentler than the night's whispers, as though the forest itself had softened with the arrival of day. The stream flowed steadily, its surface reflecting the pale gold of the morning sky. The stone lanterns along the bank no longer glowed, but their mossy forms seemed at peace, standing in quiet witness to both night's silence and the day's renewal. The traveler paused to wash his hands in the clear water. It was cold, bracing, filling him with a calm vitality. He inhaled deeply, letting the fragrance of resin and fresh morning air guide his breath. With each exhale, he felt lighter, as though the forest was helping him release the remnants of sleep. He continued along the path, his steps unhurried, his senses attuned to the quiet richness of the morning. Chapter 17 The Village Beyond the Pines. Beyond the forest's edge, the traveler saw a small village nestled in the valley. Its rooftops rose gently among the mist, their thatched forms blending harmoniously with the land. Smoke curled slowly from a few chimneys, carrying with it the faint aroma of rice being cooked for breakfast. The traveler followed the path down into the village. The narrow streets were lined with wooden houses, their sliding doors open to welcome the morning light. A farmer passed by with a basket of vegetables, offering a quiet nod. Children's laughter carried faintly from a courtyard where they chased one another, their voices mingling with the calls of sparrows perched on the eaves. A small tea-house stood near the square, its Norran curtain swaying in the breeze. The traveler stepped inside. The scent of roasted tea leaves filled the air, earthy and soothing. A kindly host poured a steaming cup and placed it before him. As he sipped, the warmth spread through him. Outside, the village moved with gentle rhythm, footsteps upon stone, the creak of wooden carts, the faint clatter of pottery. It was not noisy, not hurried, but alive, woven seamlessly with the breath of the surrounding pines. The traveler smiled softly. Here, too, silence was present, not in the absence of sound, but in the harmony of life unfolding at its own pace. Chapter 18 The Echo of the Journey. The traveler lingered in the village through the morning, walking slowly along the narrow streets. Each step carried with it the memory of the forest, the temple bell, the crickets at night, the quiet breath of the pines. As he moved through the village square, he noticed how every sound seemed softened by that memory. The laughter of children, the voices of merchants, the low murmur of neighbors greeting one another, each was gentle, folded into the calm rhythm of the day. He paused at a small bridge that crossed a shallow stream. The water sparkled in the sunlight, its current light and playful. He leaned upon the wooden rail, watching the ripples pass. In their movement, he saw a reflection of his journey, flowing yet unhurried, constant yet ever-changing. Closing his eyes, he let the sounds of the village wash over him. For a moment, he felt no distinction between forest and home, between temple silence and daily life. The quiet he had discovered beneath the pines now lived within him, shaping the way he listened, the way he breathed. When he opened his eyes again, he smiled faintly. The path forward was clear. He would return once more to the forest, to bow in gratitude before continuing on his way. Chapter 19 Returning to the Pines. The traveler left the village in the afternoon, retracing his steps toward the edge of the forest. The sun hung low, its light warm and golden, spreading across the hills. The pines welcomed him back with their tall, steady presence, their branches swaying gently as though they recognized his return. He entered the grove, and immediately the air changed. The familiar fragrance of resin embraced him, cool and grounding. The murmur of the branches rose softly, carrying the same rhythm he had heard on his first arrival. It was as if the forest itself breathed alongside him, steady and patient. He walked the path slowly, pausing to touch the rough bark of a great pine. Its surface was warm with sunlight, yet beneath, it carried centuries of quiet strength. The traveler bowed his head, whispering words of thanks not aloud, but inwardly, where silence speaks most clearly. The forest did not answer with words, but with presence. The whisper of branches, the sigh of wind, the faint trickle of the hidden stream all joined together as one quiet breath. As the day drew toward evening, the traveler sat upon a stone near the path. He closed his eyes and listened. The pine's quiet breath filled him once more, steady and eternal, guiding him gently into stillness. He understood now that this silence was not only of the forest, nor only of the journey. It was within him, ready to be carried wherever he would go. Epilogue: the breath that remains. The traveler remained seated beneath the great pines, long after the sun had begun to set. The forest around him held its quiet rhythm, unchanged yet always renewing itself with each passing moment. The wind stirred the branches gently, and the soft scent of pine resin filled the air. Shadows lengthened, mingling with the golden glow of the last sunlight. The forest was neither empty nor silent, it was alive with a calm that seemed infinite, yet unobtrusive. The traveler breathed deeply, slowly, matching the rhythm of the pines. In and out, their quiet breath had become his own. He realized that the stillness he had sought was not something to be found elsewhere. It was already within him, waiting to be felt, to be remembered, to be carried forward. The journey through forest paths, stone steps, temple courtyards, lantern-lit streams, and village streets had shown him that silence and peace can exist alongside life, in the pulse of the world and in the heart of a single breath. Rising slowly, he took one last look at the trees, the stone paths, and the lanterns. He bowed lightly, not to say goodbye, but to honor the quiet that had always been here, beneath the pines, within himself. As he walked away, the forest remained, patient and eternal. The pine's quiet breath continued to rise and fall, waiting silently for any wandering heart that needed rest, reflection, and the gentle touch of its eternal calm. Twilight in the Zen Garden. Prologue. Twilight in the Zen Garden. The sun was slowly descending, casting a gentle amber glow across the ancient Zen garden. Each stone, each ripple of sand, seemed to hold a secret whispered by the wind. The air was crisp with the subtle chill of approaching evening, yet there was a softness that wrapped the garden in quiet comfort. A solitary figure stepped lightly along the winding path. Their feet brushed against the moss-covered stones, feeling the coolness beneath each step. The gravel crunched softly, a gentle rhythm accompanying the breath that mingled with the faint scent of fallen leaves and pine. There was no hurry here. Time itself seemed to pause, bending its course around the delicate balance of nature and silence. Cherry blossoms, though sparse in this early autumn, had left delicate petals scattered across the ground. They rested on the edges of the koi pond, floating slowly on the water's dark surface, moving only when a fish disturbed the calm with a ripple. The sound of the water was gentle and hypnotic, a lullaby for the wandering mind. Lanterns, carved with intricate patterns, began to catch the soft glow of twilight. Their shadows danced lightly on the surrounding walls, painting the garden in shades of gold and shadow. A breeze whispered through the bamboo grove, carrying with it a melody only nature could compose soft. Rustling, the distant call of a bird, the faint hum of life settling into evening. The figure paused, closing their eyes, allowing the serenity to seep in. Every inhale brought the aroma of earth and stone, of pine and moss. Every exhale released tension accumulated from the noise of the outside world. Here, in this space, the boundaries between self and garden blurred, and the mind began to float freely, like a leaf drifting on the pond's surface. Stepping further, the path led to a small stone bridge. Beneath it, the stream whispered secrets of journeys long past. Tiny ripples reflected the fading sunlight, fractured into fragments of gold and amber. The figure leaned lightly on the bridge's railing, watching the dance of light and water. The scene was simple, yet profoundly stirring. It invited the heart to slow, to breathe, and to simply be. A soft sound reached them, a temple bell, distant yet resonant. Its tone was pure, unhurried, echoing through the trees and across the garden. Each reverberation seemed to align with the beating of the heart, a reminder of calm continuity in a world that often moved too fast. The figure smiled softly, a smile unspoken and private, as if sharing a secret with the evening itself. As twilight deepened, shadows lengthened, and the garden's features transformed. Stones became silent sentinels, trees guardians of time. The koi, sensing the quiet, glided with an almost sacred stillness beneath the floating petals. Lanterns now glimmered more brightly, their reflections doubling the sense of wonder. And above, the sky shifted, faint traces of lavender and indigo painting the horizon, signaling the gentle arrival of night. The figure found a seat upon a smooth, flat stone, feeling the cool texture against their skin. Here, they let themselves sink, not into sleep, but into a gentle state of wakeful calm. Thoughts began to drift, untangled from the day's worries, as if the garden absorbed them, leaving only presence and peace. The sound of the stream, the scent of pine, the warmth of lantern light, and the soft breath of wind intertwined into a lullaby that needed no words. And as the sun finally sank beyond the horizon, painting the last streaks of amber in the sky, the garden seemed to exhale, as if inviting all who entered to follow its rhythm. Here, in this twilight of the Zen garden, the world outside felt distant and insignificant. All that mattered was the gentle flow of time, the harmony of nature, and the serene embrace of silence. And as the stars began to pierce the deepening indigo of the night, the figure let themselves drift, carried by the calm, into the threshold of dreams. Chapter 1: The Path of Moss and Stone. The garden seemed to stretch endlessly as the figure continued along the winding path. Each step was deliberate, slow, allowing the feet to sink into the soft moss that carpeted the ground. It was a green so deep that it almost swallowed the light, yet every edge of the stones and leaves glimmered with a gentle clarity. A small crane statue stood among the ferns, its stone feathers worn smooth by decades of rain and sun. It gazed silently across the garden, as though keeping watch over all who wandered within. The figure approached, feeling a subtle connection, a recognition of quiet companionship between human and stone. Beyond the statue, the path curved around a small pond where water lilies floated lazily on the surface. The occasional koi swam beneath them, their bright scales flickering like fragments of sunlight trapped underwater. The figure leaned closer, letting their reflection merge with the water, and for a moment, the boundary between self and garden blurred completely. A gentle breeze rustled through the maple trees, and the leaves whispered soft secrets, each sound like a breath exhaled from the earth itself. The figure inhaled, feeling the coolness enter deeply, a subtle vibration through the chest and mind. This garden did not demand attention or effort. It invited stillness, welcomed observation without judgment, and allowed thoughts to drift freely like drifting petals on the pond. Along the path, tiny lanterns nestled among the stones began to flicker, their light soft and warm. They guided the figure without urgency, as if the garden itself were breathing with them. Each lantern revealed subtle textures: the curve of a stone, the smoothness of a leaf, the gentle rise and fall of moss mounds. Every detail seemed alive, speaking in a language older than words, understood only through quiet presence. Further along, a small wooden bridge arched gracefully over a narrow stream. The water beneath gurgled softly, tracing a winding course through the garden. The figure paused, resting hands lightly on the railing, listening to the stream's gentle song. Tiny ripples reflected the lantern light, scattering small diamonds of radiance across the water's surface. Sitting on the bridge, they closed their eyes, letting the sensations of the garden become more vivid. The texture of wood under their palms, the distant hum of insects preparing for night. The scent of moss and damp earth all combined into a soft melody that touched the edges of consciousness. Here, in this simple act of stillness, time seemed to dissolve. Chapter 2: Whispers of Bamboo and Tea. Beyond the stream, a grove of bamboo swayed gently in the evening breeze. Their thin stalks rose like pillars, creating a cathedral of soft rustling sound. Each movement carried a quiet rhythm, the sort that encourages deep, measured breathing. The figure walked among the stalks, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of leaves overhead. At the heart of the bamboo grove, a small tea house rested on stilts above a pond. Its wooden panels glowed faintly under the twilight, and smoke from a tiny hearth curled lazily into the air. Entering the tea house, the figure was greeted by a soft warmth, both physical and spiritual. The space was minimalistic, yet every element, from the carefully placed tatami mats to the faint scent of incense, radiated a profound harmony. A low table sat at the center, with a simple tea set arranged neatly. The figure knelt, feeling the smoothness of the wooden floor beneath their knees. As they poured the tea, steam rose slowly, curling and dissipating into the serene air. Sipping, they felt the warmth spread from the chest outward, mingling with the calm that the garden had already instilled. Through the open shoji screens, the garden stretched once more. The bamboo grove's shadows interwove with the lantern's glow, creating a pattern of light and dark that shifted subtly with every movement of the wind. Tiny creatures stirred: a frog leapt silently into the pond. A cicada's faint song echoed from the distance, adding soft punctuation to the meditative silence. Time flowed differently here. The figure felt neither past nor future, only the present, extended and infinite. Every breath, every heartbeat, became a thread connecting them to the rhythm of the garden. It was a sanctuary not only of place, but of mind, a gentle cradle for wandering thoughts, allowing them to drift and settle like petals floating to the pond's surface. Stepping outside once more, the figure followed a narrow path lined with lanterns, moss, and small stones. Each step was deliberate, slow, and mindful. Shadows lengthened as twilight deepened, and the garden's features seemed to shift, revealing new textures and patterns with every glance. A sense of quiet discovery unfolded, not in grand gestures, but in the small, intimate details that invited the heart to notice, to rest, to simply exist. By the time the figure reached a quiet corner of the garden, the first stars had begun to pierce the evening sky. The world outside this haven felt distant, irrelevant. Here, in the gentle embrace of moss, stone, and bamboo, the mind settled into a soft, flowing awareness, a state ready for dreams, yet still awake enough to savor the serenity of the moment. Chapter 3: Lanterns and Shadows. The sun had dipped further, and the garden now lay in a gentle shadow. Lanterns glimmered softly along the winding paths, their light reflected in the still water of the ponds. Each glow seemed to carry its own story, illuminating stones, moss, and leaves with a tender clarity. The figure wandered slowly, allowing their fingers to brush the rough edges of moss-covered stones, feeling the textures as though listening to the whispers of time. Every step was cushioned by the soft earth, every breath infused with the scent of pine and the subtle decay of fallen leaves. In this light, every shadow was alive, shifting, blending with the calmness of the garden. A small grove of plum trees stood ahead, their branches bare but graceful, their silhouettes etched against the deepening sky. The figure approached, noticing the delicate way lantern light played upon the trunks, creating patterns of light and dark. For a moment, it seemed as if the trees themselves were breathing, slowly, in harmony with the wind. Crossing a stone bridge over a narrow stream, the figure paused to listen. The water gurgled softly beneath, carrying reflections of lanterns and twilight alike. Tiny ripples danced across the surface, as though tiny spirits of the garden were stirring, celebrating the quiet transition from day to night. Along the edges of the garden, lanterns shaped like lotus flowers floated in shallow pools. Their light reflected and refracted, creating an infinite tapestry of glow. The figure knelt beside one, tracing its soft light with a fingertip, feeling the calm spread from the simple act. Shadows lengthened, yet there was no fear or urgency, only the gentle unfolding of time, measured and intimate. Evening sounds filled the garden, a distant cricket's chirp, the soft flap of a bird returning to its nest, the rustle of leaves in a mild wind. Each sound was a soft punctuation, a note in the quiet symphony of twilight. The figure let their eyes wander, taking in every detail, every shimmer of light, every curve of stone and leaf. Chapter 4 Moonlit Reflections. Night arrived slowly, carrying a velvet darkness that enveloped the garden. The first stars appeared in the deepening sky, mirrored faintly in the still ponds below. The lanterns, now brighter against the darkness, cast a serene glow, guiding the figure along paths lined with moss and stone. A small wooden pavilion overlooked the koi pond, its roof tracing a dark silhouette against the sky. The figure stepped inside, sitting quietly on the smooth wooden floor. From here, the garden seemed to expand infinitely, as though one could breathe in its calm and let the heart drift with the moonlight. The koi moved lazily beneath the water lilies, their bodies catching faint glimmers of lantern light. The figure watched them, noting the subtle ripple of water as a reflection of life's quiet persistence. Each movement was slow, deliberate, and mesmerizing, a lesson in patience and presence. A soft wind carried the scent of pine and damp earth, mingling with the faint aroma of tea from the bamboo grove nearby. The figure inhaled deeply, feeling the cool air mingle with the warmth still lingering in their body from the day's stroll. The contrast was gentle, comforting, a balance of sensations that invited complete surrender to the moment. Above, the moon rose, casting pale silver across the garden. Its light traced shadows of trees, stones, and lanterns, creating an intricate tapestry that shifted slowly with the wind. The figure leaned back, resting against the pavilion's railing, letting eyes and mind wander together. Thoughts became slower, more fluid, dissolving gradually into the rhythm of the garden. In this stillness, time lost its meaning. The world outside, with its clamor and haste, felt distant and irrelevant. Only the soft sound of wind, water, and rustling leaves existed. The figure's heartbeat aligned with the garden's gentle pulse, each beat a silent echo of nature's unhurried flow. And as night deepened, the stars multiplied, the moon climbed higher, and the garden seemed to sigh, embracing all who wandered within. Here, beneath the quiet watch of stone, bamboo, and sky, the figure let themselves drift, floating gently on the currents of twilight, ready to descend further into the calm realms of dream. Chapter 5 The Quiet of Midnight. The garden had settled into a profound stillness. The lantern's soft glow was now mirrored in the koi pond like tiny stars fallen to rest in the water. The figure walked slowly along the stone path, feeling the cool air brush against their skin. Every breath was gentle, deliberate, as though the night itself were teaching patience and serenity. The moon hung low, casting silver threads across the mossy stones and bamboo groves. Shadows stretched long and soft, curling around tree trunks and lanterns. The figure paused, noticing how even the smallest details, the veins of a leaf, the subtle ripple of water, were transformed under this quiet illumination. A soft owl hooted from the edge of the grove, its call resonating in the still air. The figure smiled faintly, feeling an unspoken connection to the creatures of the night, who moved with deliberate calm in their own hidden world. Each sound, each movement, seemed to echo the slow rhythm of the heart, inviting further surrender to the night's embrace. Crossing a small wooden bridge once more, the figure listened to the stream beneath. The water's gentle murmur was hypnotic, a continuous lullaby that encouraged the mind to let go. Tiny lanterns floated in the pond below, drifting slowly like gentle thoughts settling into place. Each reflection was a whisper, a reminder of quiet continuity in the ever-shifting world. Finding a smooth stone at the edge of the pond, the figure sat down, letting legs rest comfortably on the cool surface. The reflection of the moon danced in the water, fragmented by ripples from koi and wind alike. Closing their eyes, the figure felt a profound calm wash over them, an unbroken wave of serenity that seemed to rise from the garden itself. Here, in the quiet of midnight, the world beyond the garden ceased to matter. Time lost its urgency, only the rhythm of breath, the sound of water, and the gentle sway of bamboo existed. Thoughts dissolved, drifting slowly like petals upon the pond, leaving only awareness, presence, and the gentle embrace of night. Chapter 6: Dreams Beneath the Moon. The night deepened, and the moon rose higher, bathing the garden in its silver light. Lanterns flickered faintly, their glow softened by darkness, creating a quiet interplay of shadow and illumination. The figure wandered along the paths, feeling the soft texture of moss and stone underfoot, listening to the subtle symphony of night. A small stone bench beneath a maple tree invited rest. Sitting there, the figure gazed upward at the moon, noticing its reflection in the pond nearby. The water mirrored the stars, the lanterns, and the soft flutter of leaves, creating a tapestry of quiet wonder. Each breath felt like a gentle tide, carrying the figure deeper into tranquility. The garden seemed alive with gentle whispers, bamboo leaves swaying, water rippling, insects calling softly in the distance. These sounds were not loud or insistent, they were soft, measured, like a lullaby composed by the night itself. The figure allowed their mind to follow the rhythm, thoughts slowing, drifting, and finally releasing completely. A faint fragrance of pine and earth mixed with the aroma of tea from the nearby bamboo grove, lingering like a memory. It filled the senses without overwhelming, grounding the figure in the present moment while inviting the imagination to wander. The garden became a bridge between wakefulness and dreams, a liminal space where reality and reverie intertwined. Lying down upon the soft moss near the pond, the figure let their body and mind merge with the earth. The koi swam silently beneath floating petals. The lanterns reflected in gentle patterns upon the water, and the moon traced silver paths across the garden. In this harmony, the figure felt themselves drifting, carried by the subtle currents of night and the slow, rhythmic pulse of nature itself. And as the stars multiplied in the clear sky above, the garden seemed to exhale. The figure surrendered fully, letting the calm of the garden guide them into dreams. Every sound, every shimmer of light, every movement of water became part of a lullaby that needed no words. Here, beneath the soft moonlight, the night itself became a gentle cradle, and sleep arrived like a quiet wave, steady, warm, and endless. Chapter 7: The Whisper of Pre-Dawn. The garden rested in profound quiet. Stars still lingered faintly in the indigo sky, but the first hints of dawn crept along the horizon. Soft light began to touch the tips of bamboo stalks and moss-covered stones, illuminating them with a muted clarity. The figure walked slowly along the winding paths, feeling the cool earth beneath their feet. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp moss and pine. Each breath seemed to harmonize with the subtle rhythm of the garden, drawing the body and mind into an almost sacred stillness. From somewhere deep within the bamboo grove came the distant call of a morning bird. Its song was delicate, a fragile note that pierced the silence without breaking it. The figure paused to listen, feeling the melody resonate like a gentle vibration through the chest and mind. Tiny movements stirred in the garden, a leaf drifting in the wind. A koi gliding beneath the surface of the pond, each echoing the quiet anticipation of a new day. Lanterns, now dim against the growing light, cast soft shadows across the stone path. The figure allowed their fingers to brush over the cool stones, feeling every texture as though memorizing the subtle patterns of the garden. Each step was deliberate, mindful, carrying the awareness of both body and soul through the serene landscape. By a small stream, the figure stopped to watch the water, its surface reflecting the slowly brightening sky. The koi moved gracefully beneath, creating tiny ripples that shimmered in the dawn light. The sound of water mingled with the distant bird calls and the soft rustle of leaves, forming a gentle symphony, a prelude to the awakening world. Chapter 8: Morning Light in the Zen Garden. The sun rose slowly, casting a warm golden glow across the garden. Dew sparkled on moss and leaves, each droplet catching the light like a tiny jewel. Shadows retreated as the garden revealed its full splendor in the soft morning illumination. The figure walked along the stone path, feeling the warmth of the sun gradually replace the night's cool embrace. Birds sang more boldly now, insects stirred, and the garden's subtle fragrances, pine, earth, and damp moss blended into a soothing aroma that wrapped around the figure like a gentle cloak. Stopping beside a pond, the figure watched the koi, their scales glittering in the morning light. Floating petals from the previous evening still lingered on the water, drifting slowly with each ripple. The reflection of the sky and garden created a tranquil mirror, inviting the mind to linger in a state of serene contemplation. A soft breeze stirred the bamboo, causing the thin stalks to sway in unison. The sound was like a whispered conversation between the earth and sky, a rhythm that invited deep, unhurried breathing. The figure allowed themselves to walk slowly, savoring every sensation, every shadow and highlight that the morning revealed. At the heart of the garden, the tea house welcomed the first rays of sunlight, the wooden panels glowing warmly. Sitting quietly, the figure poured a cup of tea, savoring its heat and aroma. Each sip became a meditation, a celebration of presence, stillness, and renewal. As the morning unfolded, the garden seemed to breathe along with the figure. Stones, moss, water, bamboo, and light moved together in a slow, harmonious rhythm. The figure's thoughts had softened into clarity. The world outside felt distant, irrelevant. Here, within the gentle embrace of the Zen garden, the soul felt light, the mind calm, and the heart ready to step into the new day with quiet awareness. Chapter 9: The Gentle Noon. The sun climbed higher, casting soft warmth across the garden. Shadows had shortened, yet each stone, each leaf, still held a subtle depth that invited careful attention. The figure wandered slowly along the familiar paths, letting their gaze trace the delicate interplay of light and texture. The koi swam languidly in the pond, their scales catching the sunlight in flashes of gold and red. Floating petals drifted lightly across the surface, unhurried and serene. The figure knelt by the pond, dipping fingertips into the cool water, watching the tiny ripples spread outward, distorting reflections in a gentle dance. In the bamboo grove, a faint breeze stirred, producing the soft, rhythmic rustle of leaves. The sound was like a quiet song, steady and soothing, blending with the distant hum of insects and birds. Each note carried a sense of calm, a reminder of the continuous, gentle flow of life within the garden. Walking along a mossy path, the figure noticed subtle patterns in the stone's curves worn smooth by time, shadows shifting in tandem with the sun's movement. Every detail felt alive, each a small universe in itself. The garden invited contemplation without pressure, a sanctuary where one could simply exist, inhaling the warmth and rhythm of life around them. Stopping beneath a flowering tree, the figure allowed themselves to rest, leaning against the trunk. They felt the sun on their skin, the coolness of the moss beneath their fingers, and the soft rhythm of their own breath, blending with the gentle pulse of the garden. In this moment, time had no urgency. Only presence remained. Chapter 10: The Evening's Gentle Return. As the day waned, the sunlight softened, bathing the garden in a golden, sleepy glow. Shadows stretched long once again, and the air carried the faint, familiar scent of earth and pine. The figure wandered slowly, following the meandering paths, each step deliberate, unhurried. The koi in the pond moved quietly, almost imperceptibly, beneath petals drifting on the water. Lanterns, now unlit, cast their shadows across stones and moss, leaving a pattern of gentle darkness. The garden seemed to prepare itself for rest, its rhythms slowing, reflecting the approaching evening. At the bamboo grove, the figure paused, listening to the subtle rustle of leaves stirred by the soft evening breeze. The sound was delicate, a quiet melody that seemed to stretch into infinity, coaxing the mind to relax completely. Each detail, the curve of a branch, the texture of moss, the shimmer of water, reminded the figure of the slow, natural flow of life. Returning to the stone bridge by the stream, the figure sat quietly, letting their body rest and their mind drift. The water murmured beneath, carrying reflections of the dimming sky, lanterns, and trees. It was a lullaby without words, a rhythm that invited surrender and peace. As stars began to appear in the evening sky, the garden seemed to exhale, embracing the figure in a gentle, eternal calm. The mind softened, the body relaxed, and the heart settled. Here, in this serene sanctuary, all thoughts dissolved into the quiet harmony of stone, water, bamboo, and sky. And so, as twilight deepened once more, the garden became a cradle for dreams. A place where sleep could arrive naturally, gently, like a soft wave washing over the soul. The figure closed their eyes, drifting in perfect stillness, carried into the tender embrace of night, surrounded by the infinite serenity of the Zen garden. The sparrow's shadow in moonlight. Prologue. Moonlight over the village. The village lay quiet under the gentle embrace of night. The rooftops glimmered faintly, touched by silver strands of moonlight, and narrow streets wound like soft rivers through clusters of small wooden houses. A faint breeze carried the scent of damp earth and pine, rustling the leaves in a gentle, soothing rhythm. In the center of the village, a small garden rested quietly, its moss-covered stones and carefully raked gravel reflecting the soft glow of the moon. Lanterns, unlit but waiting, cast long shadows in the silver light, turning ordinary corners into delicate mosaics of shadow and clarity. A solitary figure stepped lightly into the garden, the soft crunch of gravel beneath their feet blending with the subtle sighs of the night. Each step seemed measured, unhurried, as if the earth itself had slowed its rhythm to match the gentle cadence of the heart. The figure paused, closing their eyes for a moment, letting the cool night air brush against the skin and carry the quiet of the village into the mind. A small pond lay at the heart of the garden, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the moon as though it were a mirror suspended between heaven and earth. Tiny koi glided beneath the floating petals of autumn leaves, their movements creating delicate ripples that shimmered in the pale light. The sound of water was soft, hypnotic, inviting the mind to slow and wander. Cherry trees, mostly bare in the early autumn night, had scattered petals across the garden paths. They drifted lazily on the pond, carried by the faintest current, and the figure watched them with a quiet curiosity. Noticing how each petal seemed to hold a story of sunlight and rain, of wind and time. Above, the sky was a deep indigo, pierced with the first distant stars of night. The moon hung low, casting silver beams across the garden, touching each stone, leaf, and ripple of water with gentle illumination. The figure felt the stillness seep into their very being, a calming presence that erased all noise from the outside world. A small sparrow flitted across the path, its tiny shadow dancing briefly under the lantern posts. The figure smiled faintly, feeling a subtle kinship with the bird, both small witnesses to the vast serenity of the night. Every breath became a thread connecting the self to the garden, to the moonlight, to the gentle rhythm of life itself. Sitting on a smooth stone by the pond, the figure let their hands rest lightly on their knees. Allowing the moonlight to touch the skin, the cool moss beneath, the quiet breath of the night. Time seemed to stretch, unbroken and unhurried, and the mind floated freely, untethered from worry or expectation. The garden, the moon, the pond, and the soft murmur of the sparrow formed a lullaby without words. And as the stars multiplied across the deepening sky, the figure leaned back, allowing the stillness of the night to carry them gently, softly, into the calm edge of sleep. Chapter 1: The Sparrow's Whisper. The garden stretched quietly beneath the gentle glow of the moon. Each stone and moss-covered patch seemed alive, holding a secret that only the night could reveal. The figure walked slowly along the winding path, feeling the soft texture of moss beneath their feet. Each step was careful, unhurried, as though the ground itself guided them toward a quiet understanding of the night. A small sparrow flitted across the path, its shadow flickering across the stones like a fleeting thought. The figure paused, letting their gaze follow the tiny bird. Its delicate movements carried a subtle music, a rhythm that invited the mind to slow, to inhale the cool night air, to release the tension of the day. Lanterns, unlit but softly reflecting the moonlight, lined the garden paths. Their presence created delicate patterns of shadow and light, revealing curves of stones and the subtle folds of fallen leaves. The figure ran fingertips over the smooth edges of a stone, feeling the gentle texture that only years of rain and time could create. Through the bamboo grove, a soft breeze rustled the leaves, producing a sound like whispered secrets. The figure inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of damp earth, pine, and moss intertwine with the quiet rhythm of the garden. With each breath, a sense of calm deepened, a feeling that the world beyond the garden had slowed to nothingness. Reaching a small stone bridge, the figure leaned lightly against the railing, observing the pond beneath. Koi moved lazily through the water, their scales glinting in the moonlight. Petals floated across the surface, drifting as if carried by the gentle pulse of the night. The figure let their thoughts drift like the petals, untethered, dissolving into the quiet of the garden. Sitting upon a smooth stone by the pond, the figure allowed themselves to sink into stillness. The sparrow returned, perching briefly on a nearby branch, its tiny form silhouetted against the moon. Each sound, each movement, became a part of a lullaby composed by the night itself, a rhythm that invited rest, contemplation, and gentle surrender. Chapter 2: Bamboo and Lanterns. Beyond the pond, the bamboo grove extended like a silent cathedral. Thin stalks swayed gently in the night breeze, their shadows dancing softly on the ground. The figure walked carefully among them, listening to the gentle rustling, feeling each subtle movement of air as it brushed across skin and hair. A narrow path led to a small cluster of stone lanterns. Their shapes were delicate, carved with intricate patterns, and the moonlight revealed their shadows in a quiet mosaic. The figure moved slowly, tracing each shadow with their gaze, noticing the subtle interplay of light and darkness that shifted with every gentle breeze. The sparrow appeared again, hopping from one bamboo stalk to another, its movements light and almost musical. Its soft chirps echoed faintly through the grove, blending seamlessly with the whisper of leaves and the distant ripple of water from the pond. The figure paused, letting the sounds wash over them, feeling the mind slow and the heartbeat align with the rhythm of the night. Further along, the path curved gently around moss-covered stones, revealing a small tea house tucked at the edge of the grove. Its wooden panels glowed softly in the moonlight, and the figure could almost smell the faint trace of tea and wood that lingered in the air. Sitting for a moment at the threshold, the figure allowed themselves to absorb the serenity. Noticing the delicate texture of the tatami mats, the faint scent of incense, and the soft patterns of moonlight filtering through the shoji screens. Walking on, the figure continued along the lantern-lit path, each step measured, mindful, and unhurried. Every sound, the soft rustle of bamboo, the quiet movement of the sparrow, the gentle murmur of water seemed to form a quiet symphony, guiding the mind toward deep calm and effortless presence. As the path curved back toward the pond, the figure felt a profound sense of stillness. Moonlight danced across the water, lantern shadows flickered across stones, and the garden seemed to exhale. Here, in this quiet sanctuary of bamboo, moss, and moonlight, the figure allowed thoughts to drift freely, floating gently toward the edge of sleep. Chapter 3: The Reflection Pond. The pond lay quiet beneath the full moon, its surface smooth and reflective like polished glass. Koi glided lazily beneath floating petals, their scales catching faint glimmers of moonlight. The figure approached the edge, kneeling slowly on the soft moss that lined the stone path, and let their eyes wander across the water. Each ripple of the pond seemed deliberate, a gentle wave that mirrored the rhythm of the heart. The reflection of the moon shimmered and fractured, blending with the petals drifting silently on the surface. The figure traced these movements with calm attention, allowing the mind to soften, thoughts dissolving like the petals upon the water. A faint rustle in the reeds caught the figure's attention. A frog leapt quietly into the pond, creating tiny ripples that mingled with the reflections of lanterns and stars. Even this small disturbance seemed purposeful, a subtle reminder that life continued gently, in harmony with the stillness of the night. The figure leaned back against a smooth stone, inhaling deeply. The scent of moss, water, and the faint trace of pine enveloped them, filling the senses with a gentle, grounding presence. Every detail, the curve of a stone, the glint of a fish, the shimmer of moonlight, was a meditation, a soft tether to the quiet world surrounding them. Sparrows chirped softly from the bamboo at the edge of the garden, their tiny voices harmonizing with the murmur of the water. The figure closed their eyes for a moment, letting the symphony of gentle sounds carry the mind into a slower, more rhythmic state. Time itself seemed to stretch, elongated by the delicate movements of water, light, and life. Chapter 4: Tea House and Shadows. A narrow stone path led the figure toward the tea house nestled at the far end of the bamboo grove. Its wooden panels glowed softly in the moonlight, and the figure stepped lightly across the threshold, inhaling the faint aroma of tea and aged wood. The interior was simple, yet each element radiated a quiet elegance. Tatami mats stretched evenly across the floor. Shoji screens diffused the soft moonlight, and a low table held a neatly arranged tea set. The figure knelt gracefully on the floor, feeling the smooth texture of the tatami beneath their palms and knees. Pouring the tea, they watched the steam rise in gentle curls, twisting and dissipating into the serene air. The warmth of the cup against their hands contrasted softly with the cool night air outside. Each sip was slow, deliberate, a meditation of taste, warmth, and presence. Through the open shoji screens, the garden spread outward, illuminated by the gentle glow of lanterns and the silver touch of moonlight. Bamboo stalks swayed lightly, casting shifting patterns of shadow upon the stone path. Koi glided beneath petals on the pond, lanterns reflected in the water like tiny, floating stars. The figure leaned back slightly, resting against the wooden post of the tea house, allowing the mind to float freely. Thoughts slowed and softened, carried gently by the rhythm of water, the rustle of bamboo, and the soft aroma of tea. Each sound, each movement, each flicker of light became part of a silent lullaby, drawing the heart and mind toward tranquility and gentle rest. Rising slowly, the figure stepped outside once more, following the meandering paths of the garden. Moonlight touched the moss, stones, and water with delicate silver threads. Lantern shadows flickered softly as if breathing with the night. Here, in the balance of tea house, pond, and bamboo, the figure let themselves drift, carried by the quiet into the gentle edges of sleep. Chapter 5: Twilight in the Garden. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting a warm, amber glow across the garden. Shadows stretched long over the mossy stones, creating gentle contrasts between light and dark. The figure walked slowly along the winding paths, letting each step follow the rhythm of the fading day. Koi in the pond moved lazily beneath drifting petals, their scales catching the soft glow of the setting sun. A light breeze stirred the bamboo, rustling the leaves like whispered conversations. Each sound, each subtle movement, seemed to coax the mind into a slower, gentler rhythm, easing thoughts toward stillness. Cherry trees, mostly bare now in early autumn, cast long shadows across the gravel. Fallen petals and leaves drifted slowly with the breeze, dancing quietly across stones and water. The figure paused to watch, noticing how the light transformed the garden, turning ordinary shapes into delicate mosaics of gold and shadow. Lanterns began to flicker faintly, catching the last rays of sunlight and mingling with the silver glow of early moonlight. The figure followed the stone path to a small bridge, leaning lightly against its railing, listening to the soft murmur of the stream beneath. Tiny ripples distorted the reflection of the sky, lanterns, and trees, creating a tapestry of subtle, shifting patterns that invited deep contemplation. Sparrows moved quietly among the branches, their shadows stretching across stones and water. The figure smiled softly, feeling a kinship with the small creatures who lived seamlessly within the gentle rhythm of the garden. Each breath became synchronized with the soft pulse of water, wind, and fading light. Chapter 6: The Owl's Call. As twilight deepened into night, the garden's features transformed beneath the growing moonlight. Lanterns glimmered with a calm glow, illuminating stones, moss, and bamboo with a tender clarity. The figure moved slowly, noticing the subtle textures of each surface and the quiet interplay of light and shadow. From the edge of the bamboo grove came the soft call of an owl, its voice resonating through the stillness. The figure paused, listening closely, letting the sound echo within the chest and mind. Each hoot was a punctuation mark in the night's gentle symphony, aligning the rhythm of breath and heartbeat with the serene flow of the garden. The pond reflected the full moon now, silver and perfect, broken only by the gentle movement of koi beneath floating petals. Lanterns mirrored in the water flickered softly, like distant stars dancing in a quiet sky. The figure leaned against a stone at the edge of the pond, feeling the cool texture beneath, letting the mind drift freely with the movement of water and light. A soft breeze carried the scent of pine, earth, and moss, mingling with the faint aroma of tea from the nearby tea house. The figure inhaled deeply, allowing the sensations to weave together into a lullaby that needed no words. The garden became a sanctuary, a cradle for thought, presence, and gentle surrender. Every sound, the rustle of bamboo, the owl's call, the murmur of the stream, the movement of sparrows was a thread in the night's quiet tapestry. The figure allowed their body and mind to melt into the rhythm, feeling each heartbeat and breath align with the serene pulse of the garden. Here, under moonlight and among shadows, the mind softened, and the heart drifted toward the gentle edges of dreams. Chapter 7 Starry Sky. The garden lay beneath a sky now dark and vast, scattered with countless stars. The moon hung high, its silver light touching every stone, leaf, and ripple of water with a delicate glow. The figure wandered slowly along the winding paths, each step careful and unhurried, feeling the cool night air brush gently against the skin. Lanterns cast soft reflections on the pond, mingling with the stars above to create a tapestry of light and shadow. Koi moved beneath the floating petals, their gliding forms mirrored perfectly in the water, as if swimming among the stars themselves. The figure paused, leaning lightly on a stone railing, letting eyes and mind wander freely. A gentle breeze rustled the bamboo, producing a soothing, rhythmic whisper. Each movement of the leaves seemed deliberate, carrying the sound of the night like a lullaby composed by the garden itself. The figure inhaled deeply, allowing the scent of pine, moss, and damp earth to mingle with the rhythm of breath and heartbeat, drawing the mind toward calmness. Small creatures stirred in the garden, an owl perched silently in the distance. A sparrow moved among the bamboo, and the faint hum of insects drifted from unseen corners. Each sound blended into the night, forming a quiet symphony that invited the heart to soften, the thoughts to drift, and the soul to rest. Sitting on a moss-covered stone, the figure tilted their head toward the sky, tracing constellations with a slow, mindful awareness. The stars seemed to pulse in gentle rhythm, echoing the soft flow of the pond and the subtle sway of bamboo. Each breath became a thread, connecting the self to the vast universe above and the intimate garden below. Chapter 8 Whispering Breeze. The night deepened, carrying a velvet darkness that enveloped the garden. The breeze grew softer, weaving through the bamboo and across the pond, rustling leaves in a quiet, continuous melody. The figure walked slowly, allowing each step to follow the rhythm of the wind, each breath to synchronize with the subtle pulse of the night. Lanterns reflected faintly in the water, their light blending seamlessly with the silver moon and scattered stars. The koi moved lazily beneath the surface, petals floating gently with the current. The garden seemed to hold its breath, waiting, observing, and inviting the figure to release the last threads of tension from the day. The sparrow's shadow flitted briefly across the path, a small companion in the night's calm. Its chirps were faint and musical, mingling with the rustle of bamboo and the whisper of wind through leaves. The figure paused to listen, allowing the mind to slow completely, each thought dissolving like mist in moonlight. Finding a soft patch of moss near the pond, the figure sat down, feeling the gentle texture beneath their hands and legs. Closing their eyes, they allowed the wind, the water, the scent of pine and earth, and the faint chorus of night creatures to carry them. Each heartbeat became aligned with the quiet rhythm of the garden, each breath a wave of calm and presence. The garden, under moonlight and stars, seemed to wrap around the figure like a gentle embrace. Shadows, sounds, and scents formed a lullaby, guiding the mind toward stillness. Here, in the balance of wind, water, bamboo, and night sky, the figure felt entirely at peace. Floating on the edge of dreams, ready to surrender fully to the quiet flow of sleep. Chapter 9: The Sparrow's Shadow. The night deepened, yet the garden remained alive with subtle movements. The moon hung low, casting silver beams that traced shadows of bamboo and stones across the soft moss. The sparrow appeared once more, flitting quietly from branch to branch, its shadow stretching and shrinking with the gentle sway of leaves. The figure followed the sparrow with calm, mindful steps, noticing how each movement of the bird mirrored the quiet rhythm of the garden. The soft chirps, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle ripple of the pond combined into a symphony of subtle sounds. Each note guiding the mind further into stillness. Crossing a small wooden bridge, the figure leaned lightly on the railing, gazing into the water. Moonlight shimmered across the pond, illuminating koi gliding beneath petals floating gently on the surface. The sparrow's shadow danced upon the water, merging briefly with the reflection of the moon, as if the bird itself were carrying a fragment of the night sky. Sitting on a smooth stone by the pond, the figure closed their eyes and let the quiet of the garden envelop them. The sparrow perched nearby, silent now, a guardian of the night's calm. Each sound, the whisper of bamboo, the gentle flow of water, the faint murmur of wind became part of a delicate lullaby. Thoughts dissolved, replaced by the soft rhythm of breath, heart, and the serene pulse of the garden. Chapter 10: Dreams Beneath the Moon. The first hints of dawn brushed the edges of the sky, pale and soft against the deep blue of night. Stars faded gently, and the moon's glow softened, casting a silver pale light over the moss, stones, and bamboo. The figure rose slowly, walking along the familiar paths with unhurried steps, letting each breath match the calm rhythm of the garden. The pond reflected the early morning light, the koi moving slowly beneath floating petals. Lanterns, now unlit, cast their long shadows across the moss, creating gentle patterns that seemed to pulse with the garden's heartbeat. The sparrow's shadow lingered briefly on the path, then vanished softly into the awakening day. The figure paused beneath a bamboo grove, feeling the soft breeze carry the scent of pine, earth, and dew. The gentle rustle of leaves and the distant chorus of birds became a lullaby of transition, guiding the mind from night into the calm serenity of morning. Every sensation, the cool moss, the faint warmth of early sun, the whisper of wind blended into a soft meditation, a gentle bridge between sleep and wakefulness. Returning to the small tea house, the figure knelt quietly, savoring a warm cup of tea. The aroma mingled with the morning air, creating a harmony of presence, calm, and awareness. Every sip, every breath, every glance across the garden reminded the figure of the continuous, gentle rhythm of life. As the sun rose fully, casting golden light across stones, water, and bamboo, the garden seemed to exhale in a slow, steady wave. The figure closed their eyes for a moment, letting the tranquility sink deeply into their body and mind. Here, beneath the gentle warmth of morning and the soft glow of day, the garden became a cradle for the soul. A serene sanctuary where sleep, dreams, and wakefulness flowed seamlessly together. And so, the mind rested, the heart calmed, and the spirit floated gently in the tender embrace of the Zen garden, carrying the serenity of night and the quiet promise of a new day. Footsteps along the frosted bridge. Prologue: the frosted bridge. A pale frost coated the wooden bridge, sparkling faintly in the morning light. Each plank held the weight of countless footsteps, quiet and slow, softened by the crisp winter air. The traveler paused at the edge, looking down at the stream flowing beneath, dark and steady, reflecting the white of the surrounding pines. The bridge was not merely a passage, it was a threshold. Its frost-laden rails whispered of time passing, of cold nights warmed by memories, of seasons that came and went like gentle waves. The traveler stepped forward, his boots crunching softly against the frozen surface. Each footfall was deliberate, measured, as though he were not just crossing the bridge, but stepping into a space where silence itself could be heard. The air carried the faint scent of pine resin, mingled with the sharp chill of frost. He inhaled slowly, letting it fill his lungs, and with each exhale, he felt the world around him grow softer, calmer, more patient. The bridge did not hurry. The traveler did not rush. Together, they moved in quiet rhythm, a gentle pulse that would guide him into the deeper stillness awaiting beyond. Chapter 1: Mist over the stream. Beyond the bridge, a narrow path wound alongside a small stream. A delicate mist hovered above the water, curling around stones and low branches, softening the edges of the world. The traveler walked slowly, each step measured and mindful. The sound of water flowing over rocks was faint, steady, like a heartbeat. In the mist, the pine trees appeared as ghostly silhouettes, their needles tipped with frost, swaying ever so slightly in the morning breeze. He paused to rest his hand on a boulder at the water's edge. The stone was cold, smooth, and grounding. The stream whispered to him, carrying reflections of sky and branches, and a gentle promise of calm. Above, the sky remained pale and still. The mist hung in layers, filtering the light into a soft glow. The traveler felt as though he had entered a world suspended between waking and dreaming, where each sound and each breath could be fully noticed, fully felt. He continued along the path, letting the mist guide his steps. The bridge behind him and the trees around him seemed to hum with quiet anticipation. It was a place of reflection, a place of gentle motion, a place where time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of his own breathing. Chapter 2: The Wooden Path. The mist began to lift as the traveler followed a narrow wooden path through the pine grove. Frost clung to the edges of the boards, making each step crisp and deliberate. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with white, forming an archway of stillness above him. Each footfall echoed softly against the wood, yet the sound was immediately absorbed by the calm of the forest. Pine needles scattered across the path crunched gently beneath his boots, adding a subtle rhythm to the quiet. The air carried the sharp, clean scent of resin, tinged with frost. It seemed to wrap around him, steadying his breath, slowing his thoughts. The traveler inhaled deeply, savoring the cold freshness that filled his lungs, then exhaled slowly, letting the forest take the tension from his shoulders. As he walked, the path curved slightly, leading him deeper into the grove. The frost sparkled faintly where the sunlight broke through the branches, like countless tiny crystals suspended in the air. Every detail, the curve of a branch, the texture of a board, the soft sigh of the wind was a small note in the forest's gentle symphony. Chapter 3: Lanterns in the Pine Grove. Further along the path, the traveler noticed small stone lanterns, spaced evenly among the pines. Each lantern was dusted lightly with frost, and though unlit, they seemed to glow faintly in the diffused morning light. He paused beside one lantern, brushing away a few fallen pine needles. The stone was cool beneath his fingers, its surface rough yet familiar, like the quiet patience of the forest itself. The grove stretched around him, a cathedral of frost and shadow. The lanterns guided his eyes and steps, not with light, but with gentle presence. He walked between them slowly, feeling the rhythm of his own heartbeat align with the subtle pulse of the grove. Occasionally, a soft breeze moved through the trees, causing a whisper of needles to fall. Each sound was delicate, like a secret shared only with those who moved quietly enough to notice. The traveler smiled faintly, feeling the forest's calm seep into his own being. By the time he reached the end of the grove, the mist had thinned completely, revealing more of the snow-covered landscape ahead. The path continued, inviting him forward, carrying him further into the silent, frosted world where footsteps and breath became one with the winter forest. Chapter 4: The Stone Garden. The path carried the traveler to a clearing where an old temple stone garden lay quiet beneath a veil of frost. The raked gravel formed delicate patterns, now softened by a thin white layer that sparkled faintly in the pale light. Large stones rose like islands within the sea of frost, their surfaces marked by centuries of wind and weather. The stillness of the garden was profound. No breeze, no sound of water, only the faint echo of silence stretching outward in every direction. The traveler stepped to the veranda, removed his boots, and sat upon the wooden platform overlooking the garden. The boards were cold beneath him, but steady, grounding him in the present moment. As he gazed at the garden, his breath slowed. Each exhalation seemed to ripple outward, blending with the quiet patterns of stone and frost. He realized that the garden was not asking to be understood. It simply was a reflection of stillness, a mirror of his own inner breath. Time drifted. The frost caught the sunlight, shifting from silver to pale gold. When he finally rose, he bowed lightly toward the garden, carrying its silence within him as he stepped back onto the path. Chapter 5: The Tea House at Dawn. Beyond the garden, the traveler found a small tea house nestled at the edge of the pines. Its roof was dusted with frost, and thin trails of smoke rose gently from the chimney, blending with the morning sky. Sliding the wooden door open, he was welcomed by the warmth of the interior. Tatami mats stretched across the floor, and a kettle simmered quietly upon the hearth. The air carried the soft fragrance of roasted tea leaves, mingled with the faint sweetness of pine smoke. The host, an elderly figure with calm eyes, offered a simple bowl and poured a cup of steaming tea. The traveler accepted it with gratitude, cradling the cup in both hands. The warmth seeped into his palms, soothing and steady. He sipped slowly. The tea was earthy, grounding, with a hint of bitterness that melted into calm sweetness. Each swallow felt like a continuation of the stillness he had found in the stone garden, warmth meeting quiet, breath meeting silence. Through the open shoji screen, he could see the pines swaying gently in the morning breeze. The frost glistened on their needles, while the faint hum of the forest merged with the bubbling of the kettle. The tea was not hurried, nor was the moment. It unfolded gently, as though time itself had chosen to move more slowly here. When the traveler set the cup down, his mind was quiet, his breath steady, and his heart lightened by the warmth of both tea and silence. Chapter 6 Steps along the mountain trail. The path from the tea house curved upward into the mountain's quiet slope. The traveler placed each step carefully, his boots crunching lightly upon the frosted earth. A thin layer of snow clung to the roots of the pines, their long shadows stretching across the trail. The climb was gentle, not hurried. He could feel the rhythm of his breath matching the rise of the slope. Inhale with each step forward, exhale with each pause to steady himself. The mountain seemed to breathe with him, its silence patient, its stillness deep. Occasionally, a bird stirred among the branches, its call soft and fleeting before fading back into the calm. The sound of his own footsteps became the only measure of time. Crunch, pause, inhale, exhale. As he reached a ridge, the forest opened slightly, revealing a view of distant hills veiled in morning mist. The light fell in layers, silver on the frost, gold on the peaks, and pale blue in the shaded valleys. The traveler stood still, gazing, letting the expanse of quiet fill him. The trail continued upward, but the climb felt less like an ascent and more like a gentle unfolding each step, drawing him deeper into a stillness that had always been waiting. Chapter 7 Reflections on Frozen Water. Further along the ridge, the traveler came to a small pond, its surface covered with a thin sheet of ice. Frost traced delicate patterns across the frozen water, forming lines and swirls that shimmered in the shifting light. He knelt at the edge, brushing away a dusting of snow from a flat stone. The air was colder here, sharper, and the silence even deeper. Beneath the ice, the faintest trickle of water could still be heard, like a memory hidden beneath the surface. The traveler leaned forward and saw his reflection upon the ice, faint, fractured by the frozen lines, yet still clear enough to recognize. He watched as his breath misted against the cold air, drifting slowly across the surface, as though joining the frozen patterns for a moment before fading. The pond reflected not only his form, but also the sky above, branches bending over, clouds drifting, light shifting gently with the day. It was as if the frozen water held both earth and sky within its glassy surface, still and eternal. The traveler closed his eyes and listened. The silence of the frozen pond was not emptiness, it was full, filled with the weight of time. The memory of flowing water, and the promise of spring hidden beneath the frost. When he finally rose, his steps were slower, gentler, as though carrying the pond's quiet reflection with him along the trail. Chapter 8 Winter Moon Above the Temple. The mountain trail descended gently until the traveler reached a quiet temple nestled among the pines. Its wooden gates stood open, the roof edged with frost that shimmered beneath the rising moon. The air was cool, still, carrying the faint scent of incense lingering from the day. Stepping onto the temple grounds, the traveler heard the soft creak of wood beneath his feet. Lanterns along the veranda glowed faintly, their light golden against the pale frost. Yet it was the moon that held his gaze round, radiant, and suspended in the clear winter sky. The moonlight spilled across the stone courtyard, washing every surface with silver. Shadows of the pines stretched long and thin, moving slightly with the breeze. The temple bell, though silent, seemed to hum with the echo of its last toll, a sound remembered by the air itself. The traveler bowed lightly, then sat upon the veranda steps. His breath rose in soft clouds, mingling with the moonlight. The stillness of the temple was vast yet intimate, as if the night had drawn its cloak closer to hold every sound in gentle silence. Here, time did not pass. The moon climbed slowly, the frost glittered, and the world seemed to breathe in harmony with his own steady rhythm. Chapter 9 Crickets and Pine Shadows. When the traveler left the temple grounds, night had deepened. The path led once more into the forest, where shadows of tall pines swayed gently beneath the moon. Though winter's chill held the air, a few lingering crickets sang softly among the roots, their notes delicate, almost dreamlike. The sound surprised him, for it carried the warmth of late autumn, a faint reminder of seasons past. Each chirp rose like a thread of memory woven into the silence of the winter night. He paused to listen, letting the song blend with the rustle of pine branches. The two sounds became one cricket song and forest breath, weaving together in slow, soothing rhythm. It was music not meant to stir the heart, but to calm it, to draw it gently into stillness. The shadows deepened as clouds drifted across the moon, softening its silver light. In the half-darkness, the traveler walked slowly, each step quiet, mindful. He no longer sought a destination. The path itself had become enough: the frost, the shadows, the quiet notes of the night all guiding him forward. When he closed his eyes briefly, he felt as though he could walk within the sound itself, a dream unfolding beneath the pines. Chapter 10: The Hidden Shrine. The forest path narrowed, winding between ancient pines whose roots rose like waves frozen in time. The traveler walked carefully, guided only by the faint glow of the moon filtering through the branches. At last, he came upon a clearing where a small shrine stood, half hidden by moss and frost. Its wooden frame was weathered, yet dignified, as though it had waited centuries in silence for each visitor who stumbled upon it. The traveler paused at the steps. He brushed away the thin frost from the offertory box and bowed deeply. No words were spoken. The stillness itself was prayer enough. The silence of the shrine was profound, filled not with emptiness but with presence, the quiet weight of countless bows and offerings that had come before. A single bell hung above the doorway. When the traveler pulled its rope gently, the sound rang soft and low, reverberating into the night. The tone lingered long after the bell had stilled, fading into the forest as though it became part of the air itself. For a while, he stood in the frost-lit clearing, breathing slowly, letting the calm of the hidden shrine settle within him. Then, with a final bow, he stepped back onto the path, carrying the bell's fading note in his heart. Chapter 11: Bamboo Wind Chimes. The path descended into a small grove of bamboo. Their tall stalks swayed lightly in the breeze, and among them hung several wind chimes made of hollow bamboo tubes. The sound was gentle, unlike the bright tone of metal chimes. Each movement of the wind produced a soft, wooden note, deep, hollow, and soothing, like whispers drifting through the night. The chimes did not play a melody, yet their scattered tones blended with the rustling of leaves, creating a harmony only the forest could compose. The traveler stopped beneath them, closing his eyes. The cool air touched his face, the scent of bamboo fresh and sharp, the music unhurried. The sound seemed to move through him rather than around him, each note a reminder to breathe more slowly, more deeply. The moonlight caught on the slender stalks, painting shifting patterns upon the frost-covered ground. The bamboo swayed, the chimes murmured, and time seemed to dissolve into the rhythm of the wind. When the traveler finally opened his eyes, he felt lighter, as though part of his weariness had drifted away with the chime's song. He bowed once more to the quiet grove and continued down the frosted path, guided by sound as much as by light. Chapter 12. A quiet clearing. The forest opened suddenly into a small clearing. The ground was soft with snow, untouched except for the faint trace of deer tracks crossing toward the trees. The air was hushed, holding the stillness of a place rarely disturbed. The traveler stepped carefully, his boots pressing gentle impressions into the snow. In the center of the clearing stood a single pine, tall and solitary, its branches heavy with frost. The tree's presence was calm, as though it had been watching the forest for generations. He lowered himself onto a fallen log, its surface dusted with snow. Closing his eyes, he let the silence wrap around him. The clearing seemed to breathe, the air rising and falling in rhythm with the faint rustle of branches. Each sound was subtle, the distant crack of ice, the whisper of falling snow, the soft beat of his own heart. For a long while, he sat without moving, as if the clearing itself had asked him to stay. The quiet was not empty, it was full of the forest's gentle patience, full of a peace too deep to name. When he finally rose, the snow around him held the memory of his rest, footprints and impressions slowly filling again with drifting flakes. Chapter 13. Snowflakes on the bridge. The path curved and soon led the traveler back toward a wooden bridge spanning a narrow stream. Unlike the frost-coated bridge of morning, this one was dusted with fresh snow, soft and white, as though laid carefully by unseen hands. Each step upon the planks was muffled, the sound absorbed into the snow's gentle cushion. The railings were capped with white, their lines softened, their sharp edges blurred into curves. Snowflakes still drifted down, landing on his shoulders, his hair, his hands melting slowly, leaving only the trace of cold. The stream below was half frozen, its surface broken by small patches of flowing water. The movement created a faint gurgle, blending with the silence in a way that felt both alive and still. The traveler paused in the middle of the bridge, resting his hands upon the railing. He looked upward as the snow continued to fall, the sky a deep canvas of quiet gray. Each flake descended with infinite care, unhurried, unique, vanishing the moment it touched the earth. He let his breath fall into rhythm with the snow, slow, soft, without weight. The bridge seemed to hold him not only above the stream but within a moment suspended outside of time. When he finally stepped onward, his footprints trailed behind him, the bridge remembering each step until the snow slowly covered them once more. Chapter 14. Misty Hills at Sunset. The path wound gently upward, carrying the traveler toward a ridge where the hills rolled out before him. As he reached the crest, the sky was already shifting, painted in hues of pale orange, lavender, and silver. A light mist rose from the valleys, softening the edges of the distant mountains. The traveler stood in stillness, his breath rising in faint clouds. The hills below seemed to float, half-veiled in twilight, their outlines blurred by the drifting mist. Pines stretched endlessly, their dark shapes swaying like brushstrokes on a fading canvas. The quiet deepened as the day surrendered to night. Birds no longer called, the forest stilled, listening. Even the air seemed slower, heavy with the calm of approaching dusk. The traveler lowered himself onto a rock warmed faintly by the last of the sun. He watched as the colors dimmed, the mist thickened, and the first star emerged in the quiet sky. Time moved gently here, not forward nor backward, but in a circle that folded day into night with infinite care. When the horizon finally darkened to indigo, he rose once more. The path waited, silvered now by the first touch of moonlight, guiding him back into the forest's embrace. Chapter 15. Returning along the frosted path. The traveler descended slowly, following the trail that curved once again through the pines. Frost glittered faintly along the ground, each crystal catching the moonlight like a lantern's glow. His footsteps were steady, measured, and soft, blending with the hush of the night. The forest seemed both familiar and transformed. What had been sharp and bright in the morning was now softened by shadow and silver light. The same path welcomed him anew, yet carried the weight of all that had passed since his first steps across the frosted bridge. He paused where the bamboo grove whispered, the chimes still murmuring faintly in the wind. He paused again near the clearing, where the lone pine stood silhouetted against the stars. Each place felt like a chapter remembered, each silence like a page turned gently. As he walked, he realized he was no longer moving toward a destination. The path itself had become the destination, every step, every breath, part of the same quiet journey. By the time he neared the lower forest, the frost upon the ground gleamed brighter, as though the earth itself had lit a lantern to guide him. The traveler walked on, his heart unhurried, his mind at rest, carried gently back toward where it had all begun. Chapter 16. The lantern-lit courtyard. The traveler emerged from the forest into a small courtyard near the edge of the village. Stone lanterns stood in gentle rows, their soft light glowing through frosted glass. The flames within flickered steadily, casting golden circles upon the snow-dusted stones. The courtyard was silent, save for the faint crackle of the lantern wicks. Shadows stretched long across the ground, weaving between one another like slow-moving water. Each lantern seemed to breathe, its flame bowing slightly to the winter breeze before standing tall again. The traveler paused at the center of the courtyard, surrounded by the warmth of the lantern light. He bowed lightly, as if acknowledging the countless hands that had kindled these flames over the years. The quiet glow was not only for him, it was for all who passed, for those who sought rest, for those who wandered in silence. He lingered for a while, listening to the soft harmony between flame and frost. The courtyard seemed to hold a rhythm that matched his own breath, a steady pulse that guided him deeper into calm. When he finally moved on, the lanterns continued to glow behind him, a gentle constellation upon the earth. Chapter 17 Morning Light on the Village. By the time the traveler reached the village, dawn had begun to soften the sky. The first light spread gently across the rooftops, brushing frost into silver. Smoke drifted from chimneys, curling into the pale air. The village stirred slowly. Doors slid open with quiet care, and voices rose in soft greeting. The sound of water being drawn from a well, the faint crackle of fires being kindled, the rhythm of daily life returned with ease, unhurried yet certain. The traveler walked along the narrow street, his footsteps quiet upon the frosted ground. He felt no need to hurry. The village was not simply a place at the end of his journey, it was part of the same circle that had begun upon the frosted bridge. A child's laughter rang out, bright but gentle, blending with the steady hum of morning. The traveler smiled faintly. The silence he carried from the forest had not left him. Instead, it had woven itself into the sound of daily life, turning every small detail into a reminder of stillness. He paused at the edge of the square, watching the morning light spill across the rooftops. The frost glimmered, the pines stood tall beyond the houses, and the village seemed to breathe with the same quiet rhythm he had come to know. Chapter 18 A Breath Beneath the Pines. The traveler left the village and followed a narrow trail back toward the forest's edge. The morning light had grown stronger, yet beneath the tall pines the world was dim and cool, filled with the familiar scent of resin and frost. He paused beneath a great tree, its trunk wide, its roots spreading like rivers across the earth. The air beneath the branches was still, yet alive with presence. He leaned gently against the bark, closed his eyes, and breathed. Inhale the coolness of pine and winter air filled his lungs. Exhale the warmth of his breath drifted outward, vanishing into the silence. The forest seemed to answer. Each sigh of the branches matched his rhythm. Each shifting shadow moved with the pulse of his own being. It was as though the pines themselves were breathing with him, steady and eternal. For a long while, he remained there, letting the forest carry him deeper into stillness. No thought pressed upon him, no memory stirred, only the breath, simple and infinite, weaving him into the world around him. When he finally opened his eyes, the frost glittered faintly on the roots. And he felt lighter, as if the silence beneath the pines had lifted a weight from his heart. Chapter 19: The Flowing Stream at Dusk. By evening, the traveler found himself once more beside a stream. The frost of morning had softened, and a thin mist rose from the water as dusk settled gently across the forest. The stream murmured as it moved between stones, its sound steady and clear, like a lullaby sung by the earth itself. The traveler sat upon a rock at the bank, watching the current drift past, carrying with it leaves, twigs, and the quiet reflection of the sky. Above, the first stars appeared, faint but certain. Their light trembled on the surface of the water, breaking gently with each ripple. The sound of the stream and the hush of the forest blended, wrapping the moment in calm. He lowered his hand to the water's edge, touching the icy flow. The cold bit at his skin, but it was clean, grounding, alive. He withdrew it slowly, listening as the stream carried onward, unending, like time itself. The traveler's breath matched the water's rhythm. In, out, steady, unbroken. He realized then that the journey was no longer about reaching a place. It was about moving as the stream moved gently, endlessly, at peace with every step. As darkness deepened, he rose from the rock and bowed lightly to the stream. Its voice followed him as he stepped back onto the path, guiding him toward the bridge where his journey had begun. Chapter 20: The Frosted Bridge once more. Night had fallen by the time the traveler returned to the place where his journey began. The frosted bridge stretched before him, its wooden planks shimmering faintly in the pale glow of the moon. Each rail was dusted with white, and the silence around it was deep, steady, familiar. He stepped forward slowly. The snow beneath his boots whispered, each sound a gentle echo of the morning's first steps. But now the bridge felt different, not merely a crossing, but a mirror of the path he had walked, of the stillness he had gathered within himself. He paused at the center of the bridge and rested his hands upon the railing. The stream below moved in shadow and silver light, carrying the reflection of the moon across its surface. The water's voice was calm, eternal, unhurried. The traveler breathed deeply. Inhale, the chill of the night air filled his chest. Exhale, his breath drifted away, dissolving into the darkness. The bridge seemed to breathe with him, its frost shimmering as though alive. He closed his eyes. For a moment, he could hear every place he had passed: the stone garden, the tea house, the bamboo chimes, the quiet clearing, the lantern-lit courtyard. They all lingered here, carried upon the rhythm of his own breath. When he opened his eyes again, the frost sparkled like stars scattered across the wood. He smiled faintly, then continued across, his footsteps slow, unhurried, perfectly in tune with the bridge's quiet rhythm. Epilogue steps carried within. Beyond the bridge, the forest opened into the night. The traveler did not look back, for he carried the bridge, the stream, the frost, and the silence within him now. Every step ahead was steady, calm, unhurried. The path was no longer something to be sought, it was something to be lived, breath by breath, moment by moment. The frost upon the bridge would melt, the snow upon the pines would fall, the seasons would turn. Yet the quiet he had found would not fade. It had become part of him, as constant as the flow of the stream, as endless as the rhythm of the wind through the trees. The world was wide, but silence was never far. It lingered in the pause between breaths, in the hush of dawn, in the soft footsteps across a frosted path. And so the traveler walked on, into the night, carrying within him the quiet breath of the forest, the glow of lanterns, the murmur of streams, and the patient stillness of the frosted bridge. Not an ending, but a return. Not a farewell, but a continuation. Each step gentle, each breath steady, an eternal journey into quiet. Petals scattered across still water. Prologue: the gentle drift. The pond lay silent beneath the morning light, its surface smooth as glass. Only the soft fall of cherry blossoms disturbed its stillness, each petal drifting down with quiet grace. The air was cool, touched by the faint fragrance of spring. Beside the water, a stone lantern stood with patient dignity, its surface weathered by countless seasons. Shadows of branches moved faintly across it, as though the trees themselves were breathing. The traveler paused at the edge of the pond, watching as a single petal touched the water and spread ripples outward. The soundless motion carried through the stillness, like a whisper that needed no words. It was here, at the meeting of silence and movement, that his journey began. Not with a road or a gate, but with a petal falling onto still water, an invitation into a deeper quiet. Chapter 1: The Path Beneath Blossoms. The traveler followed a narrow path that curved gently along the pond's edge. Above, branches arched overhead, heavy with pale blossoms. With every breeze, petals loosened and floated downward, drifting onto his shoulders, his hands, and the ground at his feet. The air shimmered with the slow dance of falling petals. Some landed softly upon moss-covered stones, while others found their way to the water, where they lingered for a moment before joining the ripples and drifting toward the far shore. Each step was accompanied by the faint hush of his sandals against the earth. There were no other sounds, only the quiet rhythm of the path and the soft descent of blossoms. The traveler paused beneath an ancient cherry tree, its trunk wide, its bark rough with age. He placed a hand upon it, feeling its still strength. The tree had stood here for centuries, offering its blossoms each spring without hurry, without change. As he continued along the path, the world seemed to move more slowly. Time itself seemed to breathe with the falling petals, each one a reminder of the gentle impermanence of all things. Chapter 2. Across the pond. The traveler reached the far edge of the pond, where the water widened and curved gently into a quiet inlet. Petals floated across the surface, some gathering in soft clusters, others drifting alone, their movement serene and unhurried. A small wooden bench sat beneath a cherry tree, its surface sprinkled with fallen petals. The traveler lowered himself onto it, resting his hands on his knees. He watched the water, seeing the sky reflected in it pale blue with streaks of white clouds, fading into the distant trees. The air smelled faintly of blossoms and damp earth, mingling with the delicate sound of wind through branches. A dragonfly skimmed across the pond, barely disturbing the water. Its motion was slow, deliberate, a perfect complement to the drifting petals. He closed his eyes briefly and inhaled. The world felt as though it had slowed to the rhythm of the pond, the gentle undulation of petals, the soft rustle of leaves, the quiet pulse of his own breath. Chapter 3. The Wooden Bridge. The path continued to a small wooden bridge spanning a narrow stream that fed into the pond. Frosted by the early morning chill, the bridge gleamed faintly in the sunlight. The traveler stepped onto the planks, his sandals pressing lightly against the wood. Above him, cherry branches leaned over the bridge, letting petals fall like soft snow. Each footstep created a gentle sound, muted by the cushion of moss and petals beneath. He paused halfway across, resting his hands on the railing. Below, the stream flowed quietly, its water clear and steady, carrying petals gently downstream. The bridge seemed suspended in time, holding him in a moment between one side of the pond and the other. As he continued, he noticed the reflections of the blossoms in the water below, mirrored perfectly in the still current. The traveler smiled faintly. Even in the briefest glance, the world offered an endless, serene beauty, a reminder that quiet and impermanence can coexist peacefully. Chapter 4: Moss-covered stone steps. The path rose gently, leading the traveler toward a set of ancient stone steps. Each step was worn smooth by countless footsteps and covered in a soft carpet of moss. Petals had settled upon the stones, adding pale pink accents to the deep green. The traveler placed his sandals carefully, feeling the slight give of the moss beneath his feet. Each ascent was slow, deliberate, a rhythm that matched his breathing. Inhale up the step. Exhale, pause, noticing the texture beneath his hands as he brushes against the stone railing. The air was cool and moist, carrying the scent of earth, pine, and fallen blossoms. He listened to the faint whisper of wind through the trees, a soft accompaniment to the faint trickle of water from a nearby stream. At the top, the steps opened onto a small clearing. The sunlight filtered through the cherry branches, highlighting the contrast of pink petals against green moss. The traveler paused, letting the quiet of the mossy steps settle in his mind, steadying his breath, and calming his thoughts. Chapter 5: The Little Tea House. Beyond the steps, a small tea house appeared, its roof lightly dusted with petals. The traveler pushed open the sliding door and entered a space filled with warmth and gentle fragrance. Tatami mats stretched across the floor, and a kettle simmered softly on the hearth. An elderly attendant welcomed him with a quiet bow and offered a cup of steaming tea. The traveler accepted it, cradling the cup in both hands. The warmth seeped through his palms, grounding him further in the stillness of the moment. He sipped slowly. The tea was fragrant, earthy, and calming, a perfect complement to the soft murmur of wind outside and the gentle descent of blossoms onto the veranda. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the aroma, warmth, and quiet intertwine. Through the open shoji screen, he could see the moss-covered steps and the petals drifting down from the trees. Each small detail was a reminder of the beauty in quiet observation, of the comfort found in patience and stillness. When he finally set the cup down, the traveler felt lighter, as if the tea and the moment of quiet had infused him with a subtle, enduring peace. Chapter 6: By the Flowing Stream. The traveler followed a narrow path that led beside a gentle stream. The water flowed quietly over smooth stones, carrying petals along its surface like tiny boats drifting downstream. Each ripple caught the morning light, scattering it in faint glimmers across the mossy banks. He crouched at the edge of the stream and let his fingers touch the cool, clear water. The sensation was refreshing, grounding, as if the flowing current carried away not only the petals but also the tension he had carried in his own body. Above him, cherry blossoms trembled in a gentle breeze, shedding more petals onto the stream. The sound of the water, combined with the soft rustle of petals, created a quiet symphony that seemed to resonate with his heartbeat. The traveler closed his eyes and breathed slowly, feeling the rhythm of the stream align with his own. Each inhalation filled him with the cool scent of water and pine. Each exhalation released any lingering thoughts, leaving only calm. Chapter 7: Silence upon the frozen pond. A short distance ahead, the stream widened into a small pond, its surface frozen over in the lingering chill of early spring mornings. A thin layer of frost traced delicate patterns across the ice, and scattered petals rested upon it like floating fragments of a dream. The traveler stepped carefully to the edge, noting the faint creak of the ice beneath him. He knelt and touched a single petal with his finger, watching as the ice beneath it shimmered faintly. The pond's silence was profound, deeper than the forest or the stream, a quiet that felt almost eternal. Above, branches leaned over the pond, their blossoms lightly dusted with frost. A gentle breeze stirred, but the ice held the water still, preserving the reflection of sky, trees, and petals with perfect clarity. The traveler breathed slowly, letting each inhale and exhale blend with the subtle rhythm of the pond. In this suspended moment, he felt the fragile beauty of impermanence, the petals, the frost, the still water, all of it held within the infinite quiet of now. Chapter 8: The winter moon above the temple. The path led the traveler to a quiet temple nestled among pines. Its wooden gates were edged with frost, and the pale winter moon hung above, casting silver light across the courtyard. The blossoms that remained on the trees seemed to glow softly in the night. Stepping onto the temple grounds, he felt the hush of the world deepen. The lanterns lining the veranda were unlit, yet their stone faces reflected the moonlight, holding a gentle presence. Shadows of branches stretched across the courtyard like delicate brush strokes. The traveler paused on the veranda steps, watching the temple in silence. His breath rose in faint clouds, merging with the cool night air. The stillness was vast but intimate, as if the temple itself had gathered the night to cradle every sound. Time slowed. Each exhale, each subtle shift of light and shadow, seemed to hold the weight of centuries. The traveler felt both small and infinite, carried by the serene rhythm of the temple under the winter moon. Chapter 9: Crickets and Pine Shadows. Beyond the temple, the path wound back into the forest. The pines swayed gently under the moonlight, their long shadows moving silently across the frosted ground. Though winter had silenced most creatures, a few crickets chirped faintly among the roots, their notes fragile yet persistent. The traveler walked slowly, each step cushioned by fallen pine needles. He paused occasionally, listening as the soft cricket song intertwined with the rustle of the trees. The sound was delicate, like a lullaby woven into the night itself. The moon drifted higher, its silver glow glancing off frost and bark. Shadows shifted, petals glimmered, and the traveler's breath fell into rhythm with the gentle sounds of the forest. Each exhale matched the swaying of the branches, each inhale carried the cool, fragrant night air. In the hush of pine and moonlight, he felt as if the world itself were breathing with him. Every sound, every shadow, every tiny ripple of life became part of the same quiet rhythm, guiding him slowly toward rest. Chapter 10: The Hidden Shrine. The forest path narrowed, winding between tall pines whose roots rose like frozen waves. In a small clearing, the traveler discovered a tiny shrine, half covered by moss and petals. Its wooden frame was worn yet dignified, bearing silent witness to countless seasons. He approached slowly, brushing frost and petals from the steps, and bowed deeply. No words were needed, the stillness itself was reverence. The air held the memory of every offering and bow that had come before, quietly layering centuries of peace upon the shrine. A small bell hung above the doorway. When he gently tugged the rope, a soft, low note resonated, fading slowly into the surrounding night. The sound lingered, blending with the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of the stream, and the faint swaying of the pines. The traveler closed his eyes, letting the shrine's calm infuse him. When he finally stepped away, the quiet lingered in his chest, as if the forest itself had breathed its stillness into him. Chapter 11: Bamboo Wind Chimes. Further along the path, a grove of bamboo swayed lightly in the wind. Small bamboo wind chimes hung among the stalks, their hollow tubes producing gentle, hollow tones as the breeze moved through them. The traveler paused beneath them, closing his eyes. Each note was soft and fleeting, echoing like whispers drifting through the night. The chimes did not sing a melody, yet their scattered sounds harmonized with the rustle of leaves, forming a delicate lullaby. The moonlight caught on the slender bamboo, casting moving patterns across the frosted ground. The wind chimes, the shadows, and the faint fragrance of bamboo created a rhythm that matched his own breath, slow, deep, unhurried. When he continued down the path, each step felt lighter. The music of the chimes seemed to follow him, a gentle companion carrying the peace of the forest into the night. Chapter 12: A quiet forest clearing. The forest opened into a small clearing, where the ground was soft with frost and a few stray petals scattered across the earth. A single pine stood in the center, tall and solitary, its branches dusted with white. The traveler stepped carefully, feeling the softness of the ground beneath his feet. He lowered himself onto a fallen log, resting for a moment. The air was still, yet full of life, the faint whisper of wind, the distant murmur of the stream, the delicate fall of petals from the cherry trees above. He closed his eyes, letting the calm of the clearing fill him. The quiet was not empty, it was alive with subtle rhythms, the gentle pulse of nature that matched his own slow, deliberate breath. Time seemed suspended here. Each sound, each movement of light across the frost, became part of the same serene pattern. The traveler lingered until he felt ready to continue, carrying the clearing's stillness within him. Chapter 13: Snowflakes on the Bridge. The path led to a small wooden bridge spanning a narrow stream. Fresh snow covered the planks, muffling every footstep and softening the edges of the railings. The traveler stepped onto the bridge slowly. Above him, cherry branches leaned over, letting snowflakes and petals fall together, landing softly upon the railings and the frozen stream below. The world felt hushed, as if time itself had paused. He paused midway, resting his hands on the railing. The water below flowed silently beneath thin sheets of ice, carrying petals that had drifted from the trees. The reflections of the moon and stars shimmered on the surface, perfectly mirrored in the stillness. Each breath he took matched the rhythm of falling snow and hail. Pause, exhale, pause. The bridge was more than a crossing, it was a moment suspended, a place where the traveler could feel the harmony of nature and his own quiet heartbeat. Chapter 14: Misty Hills at Sunset. The traveler climbed a gentle ridge, where the hills rolled softly into the distance. The setting sun painted the sky in pale oranges, lavenders, and silvers, while mist began to rise from the valleys, blurring the outlines of distant pines. He stopped on a high rock, breathing slowly. The world beneath him seemed suspended, softened by the mist and fading light. Branches swayed gently, shadows stretched, and the faint fragrance of blossoms lingered in the air. The hush of the forest deepened as the day faded. Birds had fallen silent, and even the wind seemed to pause. The traveler felt the stillness envelop him, each exhale blending with the faint rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of water. When darkness crept across the hills, he resumed his walk. The path was silvered by the first touch of moonlight, guiding him down into the forest's quiet embrace. Chapter 15. Returning along the frosted path. The forest path wound gently downward, dusted with frost that shimmered in the moonlight. The traveler's steps were steady, his sandals pressing lightly against the earth. Each sound was soft, absorbed by pine needles and fallen petals. The familiar places, the bamboo grove, the clearing with the lone pine, the mossy steps welcomed him anew. Though the forest was the same, it now felt richer, filled with the memory of every step he had taken, every petal that had floated past. He paused to listen to the soft murmurs of the night, the distant stream, the faint rustle of branches, the delicate echo of bamboo wind chimes. Each sound matched his breath, slow and calm. By the time he reached the lower forest, the frost glimmered like scattered stars, guiding him onward. The path was no longer just a trail, it had become part of him, each step a quiet rhythm leading him forward into the night. Chapter 16. The Lantern-Lit Garden. The traveler emerged from the forest into a small garden, where stone lanterns lined the path. Each lantern glowed softly, its golden light reflecting off frost-covered stones. Cherry petals had fallen upon the lanterns and the ground, adding gentle touches of pink to the pale silver light. He walked slowly, pausing to admire the subtle play of shadow and illumination. The lanterns seemed alive, breathing with the quiet rhythm of the night. Their glow painted soft circles upon the snow-dusted moss, guiding his steps without hurry. The traveler rested briefly on a stone bench. Each inhalation and exhalation aligned with the gentle flicker of light around him. In this small, lantern-lit world, time seemed to pause, allowing him to feel the serenity of every carefully placed stone, every drifting petal. When he rose, the lanterns continued to shine behind him, steady and patient, as if following him with quiet guardianship. Chapter 17. Morning Light in the Village. By dawn, the traveler reached a small village at the edge of the forest. The first light of morning spread softly across rooftops, brushing frost into silver highlights. Smoke curled gently from chimneys, mingling with the crisp scent of blossoms and earth. The village stirred slowly. Sliding doors opened with muted creaks, and voices rose in quiet greetings. Water splashed softly as villagers drew from wells, and hearth fires began to crackle. The traveler walked among them, his footsteps light on the frost-covered paths. He paused in the village square, observing the gentle movements of life around him. The world felt alive yet calm, each sound and motion part of the same rhythm he had carried from the forest. The frost sparkled faintly under the rising sun, echoing the stillness he had gathered throughout his journey. The traveler inhaled deeply, letting the serenity of night and dawn blend within him. Each step forward was measured, unhurried, as if the quiet of the village were now part of his own breath. Chapter 18: A Breath Beneath the Pines. The traveler left the village and followed a narrow trail into a grove of tall pines. The morning frost had faded, leaving the air crisp and fragrant with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. He paused beneath a large pine, resting his back against its sturdy trunk. The roots spread across the ground like frozen rivers, and the branches swayed gently overhead. He inhaled slowly, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. He exhaled, letting go of tension and thought. The forest seemed to breathe with him. Each subtle sway of branches, each rustle of needles, mirrored his own rhythm. The traveler closed his eyes, letting the harmony of breath and forest infuse him with calm. Time felt suspended beneath the pine. Each sigh of wind, each distant murmur of the village, each faint scent of blossoms became part of the same quiet rhythm, and he felt at peace. Chapter 19: The Flowing Stream at Dusk. By evening, the traveler arrived at a small stream, its water moving gently over smooth stones. The frost of morning had melted, and a soft mist rose from the surface as the sun lowered in the sky. He crouched by the bank, letting his fingers skim the water. It was cold but pure, carrying petals and the reflection of twilight across its surface. The soft gurgle of the stream blended with the rustle of leaves, forming a gentle lullaby for the evening. Above, stars began to appear, faint and scattered. Their light shimmered in the water, moving with the ripples and drifting petals. The traveler breathed slowly, in rhythm with the stream and the fading light. As darkness settled, he stood and bowed lightly to the flowing water. Its steady, endless movement reminded him that the journey was not about a destination, but about the quiet rhythm of each step, each breath, each moment of awareness. With one last look at the stream, he continued along the path, carrying the calm and stillness of water and forest into the approaching night. Chapter 20: Returning to the still water. The traveler arrived once more at the pond where his journey had begun. The water lay perfectly still, a mirror reflecting the sky, trees, and the few remaining blossoms drifting lazily on its surface. The air was cool and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of petals and pine. He stepped to the edge and rested his hands on a stone lantern, feeling its smooth, weathered surface beneath his palms. The pond seemed to embrace him with the same quiet serenity he had felt at the start, yet now it held all the memories of his journey. The forest paths, mossy steps, bamboo chimes, and lantern-lit gardens. A single petal drifted down, touching the water. Ripples spread outward, small and measured, carrying the echoes of every step he had taken. The traveler inhaled slowly, letting the rhythm of the pond synchronize with his own breath. For a moment, he closed his eyes, letting the stillness fill him. The journey had returned him to its beginning, yet he was transformed, carrying the calm, the awareness, and the quiet beauty of every path he had walked. Epilogue steps carried within. Beyond the pond, the forest stretched into the night. The traveler walked forward, but the path itself had become part of him. Every step was gentle, every breath steady. The petals, the water, the frost, the lanterns all lingered within him, a quiet companion. The world would continue, the seasons would turn, and the petals would fall again. Yet the stillness he had gathered would not fade. It existed in the spaces between breaths, in the hush of dawn, in the soft rhythm of footsteps on frost-covered earth. And so the traveler walked on, not toward a destination, but into the endless rhythm of quiet. Each moment became a step, each step a breath, and each breath a continuation of the gentle, eternal journey. Not an ending, only a return. Not a farewell, only a continuation. Each step, each breath, carried the calm of the pond, the forest, and the scattered petals within him, forever part of the quiet journey.